We're going to talk about all of that with my next two guests, Yvan Baker and Anthony Housefather, two Liberal MPs who have, over the past number of weeks, well, in Mr. Housefather's case, just the past few days, called on the Prime Minister to step aside. Mr. Housefather, I will start with you. You said that for the first time publicly after Chrystia Freeland quit. You've got the NDP today saying that they are now prepared to introduce their own motion of non-confidence. What does that say to you? What are you anticipating from the Prime Minister right now?
I'm anticipating that he's going to announce that he's going to resign in the next little while. I think that the NDP's announcement makes it even more clear we're soon going to be into an election, and the Liberal Party has a choice. We can either go into the election with an incredibly unpopular Prime Minister, one who the vast majority of Canadians are asking to resign, or we can offer Canadians a different vision, a Liberal vision, a traditional classical Liberal vision under a different leader who will have the chance to introduce her or himself to the population. And I certainly would prefer the latter course than the first course. Mr.
Baker, your thoughts on whether or not the NDP's move today make an election more realistic, more imminent, I guess, to be more specific, and what, in your view, that should mean for the Prime Minister's decision?
Well, if they follow through on what they've said, it certainly does make it more likely. And I think, as Anthony said, I think as Liberals, we need to look at how we ensure that we stop this country from being run by Pierre Poilievre. I mean, I've asked the Prime Minister to step down and call a leadership race. I did that in October, and then I'm doing so again publicly over the last number of days. And I'm doing so because I've heard from countless constituents from countless Canadians who want change. They want a change in prime ministers, but they don't necessarily want Pierre Poilievre to be that change. They don't want Pierre Poilievre to be the Prime Minister. And so, to me, if the Prime Minister were to step down and we were to elect a new Liberal leader, then that would give us the best chance of honoring that call for change that Canadians have asked for, but also make sure that we stop Pierre Poilievre.
We haven't, Mr. Housefather, yet heard directly from the Prime Minister. Mr. Baker referenced October when MPs behind closed doors made that appeal for him to step aside. He very quickly after that caucus came around, I think it was something like less than 18 hours later, and said, no, I've made up my mind. I'm sticking around. We have not heard that. It's been 5 days since Chrystia Freeland resigned. What does that tell you?
I think that what I heard in both his voice and from his body language on Monday was a different Prime Minister from when we had conveyed that message internally in October. I think he's far more reflective. I think he's giving this a lot more consideration. I think the political dynamics have changed. We're even closer to an election. The rebound in the polls he was hoping to see has not happened. And I certainly hope what he will do is look at the actual numbers, because there is no poll that I've seen in the last year that would justify a decision by him to stay, rather than listening to a small coterie of people around him that may be encouraging him to do the opposite.
I think that what I've heard from some of those people, Mr. Baker, is that despite that polling, there's a sense in and around the Prime Minister, or had been maybe until this week, that in a campaign they can pull off something differently, and that actually the Prime Minister is the only person who could pull that off. How do you respond to that?
Well, look, I don't agree with that. I think we've heard from Canadians, I've certainly heard from my constituents, that they're looking for a change. And I think we have a record that we can be proud of, that we've delivered for Canadians, whether it's on affordability or on housing or on healthcare or on dental care or on a number of other issues. But the reality is that Canadians have expressed that they want change. My constituents have expressed that they want a change in prime ministers, but they also don't want Pierre Poilievre. I mean, Pierre Poilievre is somebody who's tremendously good at offering slogans, but doesn't offer solutions. He's somebody who would cut those programs that your viewers and Canadians rely on, whether that's healthcare or dental care or child care. He's allowed his MPs to propose things that would undermine women's rights. And he's somebody who, in my view, doesn't have the character of someone befitting of being prime minister. This is somebody who constantly traffics in misinformation. This is somebody who panders to a far-right group of voters, of supporters, and to me, he insults journalists, he insults experts. Vashi. At the end of the day, I don't think this is someone who has the content or the character to be prime minister. And so I think there's a tremendous amount at stake, and that's why I have been asking the prime minister to step down. Again, I think it's in the best interest of the country. I think it's just in the best interest of the party, and it's certainly what our constituents and Canadians are asking us for.
Despite the view that Mr. Baker just espoused, Mr. Housefather, Mr. Poilievre now for a full year has been at a minimum 10 points ahead, at a maximum, depending on the poll, 25 points ahead of your party. Are you so certain, even at this stage of the game, that a change in leadership will make any difference?
Well, the first thing is in every constituent in the country, people vote for their individual MP. They don't necessarily vote for a party. What I know is that in my riding and in many other ridings, as I'm hearing from Liberal MPs, people are saying they want to vote for us. They like what we have done locally. They like our record, but they don't like our leader. And as a result, they're having a tough time in voting for us. To me, the Liberal Party, whether we win or we don't win in the next election, and I very much hope we win, will do a lot better under another leader that is not Justin Trudeau. That I am 100% confident in. Whether it means we win or whether it means we win 50 or 60 more seats than we would win under Justin Trudeau, we will do better under a different leader.
Mr. Baker, last question to you. I had asked this earlier in the week of Mr. Housefather, but if Mr. Trudeau does decide, if the Prime Minister does decide that he isn't leaving, what does that mean for your future?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on what happens at this point. I am currently running. I'm currently nominated, but I'm going to have to see how things play out over the coming days and weeks.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. I appreciate very much both of you making the time for the conversation this afternoon. Thank you. That's Liberal MP Yvan Baker and Liberal MP Anthony Housefather.